Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast, the show where we review oddball movies, have oddball discussions, and occasionally take questions from you, the oddball fans.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I'm Albert Berg, and it's Thanksgiving, everybody!
Gobble, gobble,
Woo!
motherfucker. That's the tagline of this movie. They actually made the tagline before they wrote anything for the movie.
That's the kind of movie we're talking about. We are, after how many years of podcasting, Tony? We keep getting past Thanksgiving and not reviewing this movie.
I think this is our 5th Thanksgiving.
We're talking about ThanksKilling. This is Joe's doing.
Yeah, Joe forced this on us. We were all set to do Neon Demons. And no, Joe was like, no, you're doing ThanksKilling. I'm like, can I veto this? He's like, no, not at all.
I'm not disappointed that Joe picked this movie. Okay, I was not looking forward to this because I started watching it and didn't love it, and so I had never come back to it. However, for you, the listeners, we have watched this movie, ThanksKilling. If you're unfamiliar with it, ThanksKilling is a movie about a killer turkey. It opens in quote-unquote Pilgrim Times. In fact, I'm pretty sure they actually used the title card Pilgrim Times.
Yeah, they didn't look up like when Pilgrim Times were. They just got what was her name? Wanda Lust, who I'm pretty sure is just a normal porn star. The first shot of this movie,
Wanda Lust is her real name, Tony. I'm sure that's on her birth certificate. Why would you even question that?
Oh, I'm gonna have to see the birth certificate. I'm pulling a Trump here. It starts out in Pilgrim Times with just gratuitous boobs and a turkey hunting down a pilgrim lady, killing her. Flash forward to modern day, where we have our hapless group of 5 20-somethings, stop me if you've heard that one before in horror movies, who, across the course of this movie, manage to get in the path of this ancient, unkillable zombie turkey who is being animated by the curse of the Indians that were mad at the Pilgrims for some reason. That happens every 505 years to the day. Exactly
505 years for some reason. We're not sure.
Even though technically it woke up a little bit earlier than that because the dog that had the constantly changing name, I think the name is Flashy, like peed on its totem, so it got up and killed the dog.
It gets awakened. It chases all these people down in, relatively comic fashion. And I think comic is the important word to remember here. This movie is not taking itself seriously in possibly the best way.
It is the best way. It's like better than Birdemic in that, but it's still just like almost unwatchable with how bad the acting is. Like, it's the type of movie that doesn't need a bunch of people making fun of it, even though the Achievement Hunter guys did do that. It's just completely bad on its own merits and laughable just because of how bad the acting, how bad just everything is. It was so cringy at different parts.
I kind of liked it, Tony. I found the humor in this to be... It's one of those movies where you're going through this and like there's stupid humor. Like, it's really, really lowbrow stuff. But then occasionally you'll get a joke in there that like gives you a glimmer of, oh, these aren't like complete morons making this movie. Like, they don't have any kind of highbrow sensibilities, but they are trying to be funny. I read an interview with the director and he talked about sort of the humor of the movie, and he said 90% of what is funny about it is intentional, and 10% is because it's bad actors and a rubber puppet of a turkey and sort of the low budget. But I think they're sort of leaning into the bad acting. They're not going for something that they can't achieve.
Yeah, they didn't Tommy Wiseau it where he intended to make a great movie and this is what he got. They just they filmed this in 11 days. They put it together. They had like a fun little script and they just decided to go out and do it. Like, they weren't trying to make the scenes where he's like over his friend's dead body weeping for like 3 minutes too long. Like, they were intentionally dragging that out. It's not like they did exactly what they set out to do.
Well, that was, I mean, scenes like that were great though, because I love those. That was actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where the guy gets his guts pulled out. The nerdy guy who had, you know, in the beginning of the movie acts like he's just met them, or they don't like him that much. Like goes over to him, you know, at the point where the fat guy gets killed, and he's like, "Why? Why?" And like they have this flashback to where they're like running through the park hand in hand and like pushing each other around.
It was very much like a South Park style song too, like just about losing his best friend. Like I was cackling at that, and you know me, I'm not going to cackle at very many musical things, but that part just kind of caught me off guard. That was a very effective and funny portion.
Yeah, and it's on purpose. Like, I think that it shows, the portions like that show you that these guys have a real sense of humor that definitely sort of lives in the area of the gross out fart joke, lowbrow humor, but also, like, is a little bit more intelligent than that. They keep making, the one smart girl in the group keeps making JonBenet Ramsey references, and everybody keeps laughing at those. And at the beginning, I wrote a note to myself, I was like, what is up with these JonBenet Ramsey references? And they like pay that off with, I mean, it's not a classy joke.
It got dark.
But
it got really dark.
I felt like it actually justified its own existence. So this is of all of these low budget movies that we've talked about, right? Like we haven't reviewed The Room yet, but we did talk about The Birds and things like that. Like, this is one of the best ways that you can go with that. It knows that it's what it's going to look like. It knows that it's going to have a rubber puppet and it's going to have bad acting. And so it takes all those sensibilities and leans into them. It's still super vulgar, which for me was kind of the part that took me out of it. I didn't need it to be quite as vulgar as it was.
Hey, at least the turkey used protection.
Gravy flavored condoms.
Extra small gravy flavored condoms.
That was the other part too that I thought worked brilliantly, is that people, like, the turkey would have on the dumbest disguise or no disguise at all. Like, you'd have this rubber turkey wearing, like, you know, Groucho Marx glasses and nose and mustache thing just on top of its rubber turkey nose, and people are like, "Oh, hi, what's going on?" And he, like, just don't ever acknowledge that he's a turkey. Later on, he's got the mask of somebody that he's killed over his face.
Yeah, the
like,
mask of a girl's father. And she's just like, "Oh, daddy." It's like, it's just so bad.
But again, like, it's almost satirical. It's definitely not meant to. These people are meant to be stupid. The people writing them knew that they were being stupid.
Well, even the turkey calls them some pretty bad things, indicating how stupid they are. He just, like, can't even believe it.
They have the sort of stereotypical B-movie music where it just doesn't fit. Like, they just have some temp track they picked up from Creative Commons or whatever, and they're like, throw that on there, it'll work.
Yeah, with some of that music, especially the upbeat stuff, I can never tell if it's, like, supposed to be gospel or a love song, because you can just, like, change her to Jesus and it just works like that. It's so weird with those ones. I couldn't tell if that was a gospel song at the beginning.
There's this scene where, like, the turkey kills a rabbit for whatever reason, and like
throws it in the fire.
Furry rabbit falls into the fire, and the girl's like, "Oh no, what is it?" And the guy comforts her like, "Don't worry, I'm sure that happens all the time." Like, yeah, bloody, like, dead, desiccated rabbit corpses fly out of the forest and land in campfires all the time. It's a common hazard of campers. You wouldn't believe.
I mean,
you wouldn't believe. You're just out there,
man.
camping.
And I like that he could just tell that it was killed by a beak.
A lot of great low budget stuff for a movie made on $3,500, which is what this movie was made on. I can't fault this, because again, they played to what they knew the movie was gonna be with that budget, and made something that worked on that level.
My main problem with it is it just felt so long. It's an hour and 6 minutes if you count the credits, and I felt like it took 5 or 6 hours to watch. It was like watching Return of the King. So
you didn't like this?
I thought it had some funny moments. It just, like, I couldn't I couldn't keep up with how just slow it was. Like it was atrocious to watch that.
I started out not liking it, but it kind of won me over the course of the movie. I didn't get the feeling that you had, where I guess because I started to feel like, oh, these people aren't incompetent. They're just like, they have no money.
Yeah.
And so they've just got like their 3 friends and a camera phone, and this is the movie they could make.
They did end up making a second one, even though it's called ThanksKilling 3. I thought there were actually 3 movies in this series, but it's actually 2. They kickstarted the second one. It had like a $112,000 budget. So I wonder how much better the effects are in that one.
Well, I read some reviews about it. First of all, the premise of the second one, which we will hopefully review next year, maybe, is that ThanksKilling 3 is the search for ThanksKilling 2. Like the turkey is trying to like hunt down the last final copy of ThanksKilling 2. They have like a whole bunch more puppet work. There's like a whole puppet world that they live in, but they kept the same sort of aesthetic. So it's also in space. You know, they like do the rebooted in space thing with the ThanksKilling 3. There's a lot about that conceptually that I like. I don't know if it'll capture quote unquote the magic for me of ThanksKilling, but I like where their head is going with that, at least, where they say, okay, well, we got a little bit more money and we'll do, like, they built better sets and better, better costumes, and they probably had a little bit better camera, but I don't think that they fundamentally changed the way they were going to make the movie based on having a little bit more money.
Yeah, it just allowed them to do the puppets and everything else. Maybe get some better digital effects. Although the digital effects, there was only one that looked completely terrible, and that's whenever the big oaf guy just like swallows the turkey whole.
The ghost turkey?
Yeah, the ghost turkey.
That was not even, I mean, that's digital, but it's like MS Paint digital.
Yeah, it's like clip art, like just imposed onto it. It's like so many bad GIFs you see.
There's not really a lot of, I mean, of the effects that are in this movie, you've got some gore and you've got the turkey mask, and I think, again, it's playing to the strengths of the budget. They said, we're not going to do very many, if any, digital effects. Everything, for the most part, is going to be this sort of really cheap practical effect that you can laugh at.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of like glowing effects and things like that. Nothing too crazy. Were you surprised at how it started out like full on like just boobs everywhere and then like never again in the movie?
I was going to say, I wasn't surprised. I mean, because I had seen it before. I wasn't so much surprised how it started out, but I was surprised that like they never visited that kind of thing again. It seems like they sat down to write their screenplay and they're like, all right, just like first page, just all caps, boobies. And then like back, pilgrim boobies. And kind of, I mean, because it starts out just close up on Wanda Lust boobs and, you know, being hunted down and killed by a turkey, and it's so gratuitous and then you never get back to that.
It was so funny just seeing that turkey like have no like pilgrim accent or anything back then. Just like I can't even remember what he said to her, but it was just,
I remember what he said, but I'm not gonna repeat it.
If I remembered, I would repeat it, but Alan and cursing don't quite mix.
It was too much for me as far as the language goes, I will say. Plus, it was only like most of the other people were sort of at a weirdly normal level, and then the turkey's just like foul mouthed, which again I think is a very intentional, like, he's a turkey, it's a bird, we're gonna make him foul. Like, that's the kind of joke this movie's going for.
He makes that joke at least once or twice. He also has like a shotgun that he can just like pull out of nowhere. That was entertaining to me.
Well, yeah, he also manages to sew a face mask of a dead guy's face and
manages to like crack people's necks. I'm pretty sure like wings don't quite work like that.
It's not. Yeah, stop thinking about it.
No, I was saying stop. I liked it. That was one of the things I did like, that he could just like pull a shotgun out of his plumage. That was probably one of the more disturbing scenes whenever he like gets the car, his like No Country for Old Men moment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a little bit difficult. It was a little bit difficult for me. Do you want to talk about what that was, Tony?
It's like that old bumper sticker. Like it's cash, ass, or grass like type thing where you'll only get a ride if you can provide one of the three. And the guy is okay with the, having the turkey present himself.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets closer and closer and closer, and then the turkey just like, that's not for anyone. And he pulls his shotgun out. It's like the only moment where you see like weird desperation on the turkey's face for a second. And then he's like, call your daughter. And like, so the guy calls his daughter and is just like weeping into the phone, being like, I'm coming home, sweetie, I'm coming home. And then he just blows his head off and starts like doing the turkey like cackle.
I thought also, I wanted to point out, not that I'm gonna like, it's not gonna win any awards at all, but from a perspective of showing people doing things on screen and sort of edits being relatively comprehensive, it's not like so slipshod that you don't know what's happening. Like it looks like they at least knew how to set up some shots to, you know, give you the idea and cut between things so that it made sense and not feel like, wait, what? That was like, where did that cut come from?
And it definitely gets self-referential too. Like whenever they're talking about like the montage where they're like looking for the collection of books, like just to find that one turkey book, and like they're like, it took so long, and she was like, that was like less than 5 minutes.
The fact that he has, like, they obviously didn't have the money to go to a public library, like, to shut down or, like, get a permit or anything. So they're like, we got to go to the library. And they're like, we can't go to the library. But because it's, you know, because it's the middle of the night and the library isn't open. But my dad has this room full of books. And they're just in his garage, like, looking through all of his books in the hopes that he'll have the turkey killing manual.
I was kind of hoping it would just be like a cookbook, but turned out to be something weird that had like mathematical code written by pilgrims
on cardboard.
Yeah, on cardboard.
Like they show a cardboard. They show a close up of it. I don't know what the front cover is, but it's just like 5 pieces of cardboard, kind of like strung together with string. Because again, they had $3,500, and that's what you do when you have $3,500.
Yeah. I'm betting most of their budget went towards making the turkey, paying a few people, and maybe some food for the set. Like, they really did not have much to work with here.
Well, the director had just sort of some leftover latex in his apartment that he had from a previous project. I read an interview with him where he talked about his first student film was something called Craw Lake, which I have not looked up. I intended to look it up before the podcast just to see what it was like. Did not get to it, so I can't speak to it. But he mentioned the budget for his first student film, like a short film, like 5 or 10 minutes, was $15,000, and they shot on 16 millimeter film. Compared to like his first feature, where he's got $3,000 and a handy cam practically. But so he went to film school, and he's just sort of making what he can with what he has. Again, I can't. Maybe it's just because I read these interviews and sort of got an appreciation for the guy himself as a creative. I almost said creative force. That might be a little bit overselling it, but as someone who is doing what he can with what he has, and intends to be funny with it. But I respected a lot of what the film was trying to do and how well it pulled it off.
And I can definitely see that they did that. Like I said, my main problem was it just felt so long. And it had good gags. I laughed a few times. But like, I also have a harder time with cringe stuff than you do. Like,
I have a hard time with cringe stuff. I just didn't cringe as much at this one. I don't cringe as much watching a bad movie usually, because I don't feel bad for the actors.
I like straight up cringe for bad acting more than just like bad lines and all that too. So it gets a little amplified for me whenever he's dying from having like a turkey, like a turkey carver like shoved into him, and he's like, I wish I could call a timeout here. Like stuff like that like makes me want to shoot myself. Like I literally considered it for a moment. I was like, I would rather shoot myself than finish this right now. And then I was like, that's a dumb thought. Just finish the stupid movie.
That's a really dumb thought. I had the thought watching this movie that this gives more consideration to, in the script anyway, to how these people would actually be feeling during this scenario than like a lot of big budget movies that I've seen, where like they actually do take time to sort of be like, my dad's dead. I'm kind of bummed out about that. Yeah, my parents are dead too.
Yeah, and then like 45 seconds later, she's trying to make out with the jock guy.
Yes.
Like she could probably smell his corpse with its face taken off while she's like, it's okay, I like you.
They pay some service to that stuff at least, which is not like, it's not like a big strength to the film, but it sort of tells me that they're, I don't know, they're not completely stupid. The director's name, by the way, is Jordan Downey, and he wrote this script with a guy named Bradley Scholes. Jordan Downey also does the voice of the turkey. So they're back. They were back on for ThanksKilling 3. They also wrote ThanksKilling the musical, Tony.
I will skip that. I don't care if Joe picks that one.
Well, it's not a movie. It's like a live show you can go to.
Really?
Yeah, it's gonna be on Broadway soon.
Not
literally. I'm lying. It's a. I forget where they said it was playing.
It'll
but
be in
it's,
like some backlot theater, probably in Ohio, where this was made.
They mentioned that the cast, like the people who work at this particular theater, are also, there are several cast members from Archer, which is one of the reasons they wanted to do it. They're like, we're gonna get Pam Poovey and Dr. Krieger to be in our show. Yes, we will go to your theater.
That might be kind of awesome.
Yeah, and they start out with like, if you're looking for culture, like, go screw yourself. This is not that. Like, that's the opening monologue. It's just the, you know, there's other things you can go to. This is gonna be stupid. It's ThanksKilling, guys. So they understand what they're doing in a way that I think sometimes other franchises that are quote unquote supposed to be not taking themselves seriously, like Sharknado, don't always. Like, Sharknado is ostensibly this self-referential, we're in on the joke, we know we're stupid, but they never quite like figure out if they're going to take themselves seriously or not. And I think this one really goes for the humor and gets the humor in a way that something like that does not.
And I had like 1/3 the budget of Primer to do it with.
Wow, yeah. Well, Primer was 6,000.
Oh, I thought that was 11,000.
Yeah, who knows? You know what? When we're talking about numbers that small for a movie, it's basically zero.
Yeah. If you make a movie for less than 10 grand and it actually sells a bit, you've done pretty good for yourself.
Yeah, and this is a movie that was saved by the Netflix sort of model. You know, they distributed themselves, essentially, put it up on, I don't know what self-publishing VOD options
they were selling
2009.
just the DVD out of their house on Amazon for the most part. Like, for the first year they were doing that. Then it started getting on some streaming platforms. Like, they sold about 1,000 copies in its first year, which, again, if you're doing a self-published thing, like, to sell 1,000 copies of a DVD is not that bad. Like, they might have actually recouped their costs on that.
Right, and especially for something that, I don't want to call it a passion project, but it's, I respect the notion of a filmmaker, you know, or somebody who wants to make films saying, okay, you know, I'm a nobody, like, I'm not in the studio system, I don't have any contacts, but I've got a few grand and a camera and some friends, like, let's do something. I can't diss that too much, and so, you know, from that perspective, I think they succeeded. Like, they did something, whether or not anybody ever heard of it. They went out and made a movie. It's more than I'm doing, Tony. I talk about, like, I'd like to do something, but I can't. I'm scared to go out and meet people and be like, I kind of think it'd be cool to shoot something like a short film or something. I've got a camera. It's sort of dumb, but do you want to try? I don't ever do that. I don't ever say that to nobody because I'm afraid. These guys weren't afraid. They went to film school. They met people who wanted to do it like they did. I mean, probably they were in California, so that helps.
No, this was all filmed in Ohio.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Oh, well, never mind then.
So
you should go to the PJC Film School. Maybe they have one, Tony.
I have no idea.
It's not PJC anymore. Pensacola something college. PSC. Pensacola State College. They're not junior anymore.
Yeah, they have a few videography programs out here. None that, like, would really get you anywhere further than going to, like, California and doing it, but...
Well, if you make contact with other people, I think that's the main thing, is to meet other people who are stupid enough to be like, yeah, I'll be dumb in front of a camera. Why not?
Whenever I was at Denver Comic-Con this year, I went to a film short thing that they did, and it was their film school showing, like, their end projects, and there were some really good ones in there. Like, turns out a few students with some cameras can make some pretty serious film there. Yeah,
and with time, I think, especially, the 11-day shooting budget is maybe the most impressive, you know, the time budget there is the most impressive thing, is that you just got to get it done. So, you know, you get your tripod and your angles and be like, all right, go guys. And
as far, they also had some pretty decent establishing like scenery shots too. Like it didn't feel like super low budget in that. The only time it felt really low budget is it was kind of cramped in some of the houses. Like I felt like they couldn't.
The lighting.
Yeah, the lighting was sometimes bad, and the houses were just like the camera's just a little too close to people, or it just couldn't quite get the right angle. But like those were all forgivable things.
And a lot of times it felt like they were picking up sound, just the sound from the camera, which is not ideal. That's another thing that low budget movies really struggle with, is getting good sound. You know, it's easy to get a good angle, but like picking up sound and not having like background noise, and, you know, having somebody to operate a boom mic, like those are all extra expenses that a lot of like really tiny budget movies can't afford.
And that's something that I think is going to be improving pretty rapidly, just because sound technology is getting cheaper, more accessible. Like if you think back to the Dirties, they were able to do some pretty good sound capture, especially with the distances that they were filming at.
Right. Well, I think they use lavalier mics, and they had the benefit of being able to explain the mics in world, so they didn't have to have them completely hidden all the time.
Yeah.
Because within the context of the movie, they're making a movie, so they could be wearing those and it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Whereas if this movie just had a mic clip to it, it might be a little bit, you know, scene breaking.
Not that that would be a problem for this movie.
Yeah. Compare this to like Dude Bro Massacre 3. Like as far as like intentionally
Party
bad.
Massacre 3, I believe.
Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, whatever it was, like, you know the movie I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Like that one had a much larger budget, but it also like it still had a lot of the same elements as this, as far as just the slapstick humor, the like over the top violence, all that. Like, do you prefer this movie to that one?
No, I think Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 is funnier. I think those guys are smarter with their humor than this is.
They've also been doing it a lot longer too, though. Like they've been like there are hundreds of those like 5-second joke movies.
Right, and there are so many moments in Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. I gotta find a faster way to say that, but they have that like just stringing together. It fits all in one narrative, but like you can tell that they've been telling jokes in a very short amount of time for a very long time. And also they kind of have that sort of jokey but a little bit serious commentary on the, you know, masculinity and sort of, you know, the dude bro mentality, whereas these guys feel like they just are dude bros and they're writing dude bros. So I think Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, I mean, I had that on my top 10 or 20 films of the year when that came out, and I haven't gone back and watched it again, but I still think that was a really, really brilliant film. Part of the reason I haven't gone back is because their like digital distribution is by like some weird company that I'm not in their ecosystem, and I don't want to get into a new digital movie owning ecosystem, Tony. I've got Amazon and Vudu, and that's enough.
Yeah,
like, I'm good there.
You got Hulu, and now there's CISO and 10,000 other things right now. It's like I don't even have time to watch all the stuff I want to on Netflix right now. I can't be signing up for more services.
Yes. This is on Hulu, by the way. For those of you who are subscribed to Hulu Plus, that's where I watched it. I don't know where Tony got it.
I paid $4 to watch this on demand.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've spent $4 on worse. I mean, it's like some energy drinks or something.
They also have Ginger Dead Man on Hulu. Should we talk about that one for Christmas, Tony?
I kind of think we might have to. Like, I don't know.
I don't want to commit to it, partly because we'll forget.
Yeah, Joe's not going to let us forget now that he's listened to this.
Well, maybe not. Did we get any questions about the movie?
We did, actually. Let me pull those up real quick. All right, first question comes from Geeksgiving, which is at GeekGirlCo on Twitter. Who hated this movie more, and how badly do you want to force Joseph Devon to watch it?
Well, I think Tony hated it more, as you can tell by the previous portion of the podcast that you just listened to. Do I want to force Joseph to?
Yes.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I want to force him to. Like, I feel like there's a lot of times where he gets out of this just because, you know, he's like, oh, I'm just going to force them to watch bad stuff so I don't have to, and I get to hear about it. I think we need to force him to watch some of these. Like he should have been there for some of the movies during Viewers' Choice Month. But then again, he would probably like the Pitch Perfect series, so it wouldn't be much of a punishment. We have to drag him into some deep waters with like a bad shark movie, something like that. Sometime we got to force him onto one of these.
Well, right. So here's my problem is that I don't know that this is the movie. Like, if let's say we have one bad movie shot for Joseph. Like, is this the movie that you give him, or do you dig deeper?
I think we'd have to dig a little bit deeper. Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong might be the one. Like, there's a lot of options for us. So if you guys have any ideas for what you'd want us to torture Joe with, like, we could go with the classics like Troll 2, but I think he might enjoy those. So it might have to be a movie that was trying to intentionally be good and just turns out to be god-awful.
I'm envisioning his tweet stream right now because he'll live tweet as he's listening to the podcast, and I'm just seeing a tweet that just says no at HE Podcast. We'll see what we can do there. Pressure him. By the way, this will only happen if you, the fans, like Joe could be like, nah, I don't want to do it. If there is a public uprising for internet celebrity Joseph Devon to watch a bad movie, he might have to bow to public pressure.
Yeah.
See, we need you. We can't make him do it.
I tried to force Hannah into this review, and I think she just kind of noped out. Like, I still wonder what her reaction would have been, because, like, she is not used to this world at all. Like, this world of bad films. Like, I've sent her trailers for things before, and all I get back are just, like, circle_circle, and, like, no commentary.
She's a master of the little
the emoji action. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's an O, not a circle.
An O is a circle.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it felt weird whenever I said it, okay?
She didn't type out the word circle and then the word underscore and then the word circle.
I think I would understand what she was saying if she did do that, though. I might try that sometime. All caps, circle_circle.
Did we get any other questions, Tony?
I think we got more of a statement.
Yeah, Joseph, was that for the one from Joseph?
Yeah, I was asking for people to tell us about like these sorts of movies and what they're thankful for. And Joseph said, I'm thankful for typos. Also, I'm thankful you had to watch ThanksKilling.
I'm thankful too, Joe. Thanks for recommending it. Not lying. I was fine with this one. I
got up at 6:30 this morning and just like stumbled over to my phone. Was like, I forgot to schedule tweets, so I probably put a typo in there.
I didn't see the typo.
Yeah, I didn't either. So maybe I did it right. Maybe I didn't. Maybe he's referring to something else that I had him edit. It's not like whenever I said, like, thanks to all my poops out there.
Tony. Well, I think that is everything that we have to say about ThanksKilling. If this sounds like your kind of thing, I think we can recommend it. Would you recommend it, Tony? I
think there's a lot worse ways you could spend 1 hour. Like,
the plot is stupid, the characters are pretty terrible, and the cinematography sucks more or less, but it's funny.
Yeah, especially if you have Hulu, so you're not having to go out of pocket to pay for this. Like, if you want to watch a really dumb Thanksgiving horror movie, this is definitely the one. I don't know of any other Thanksgiving horror movies, but this will work.
Yeah, President's Day coming soon. That would be, wait, like all the zombie presidents coming back, and like that would be awesome. Like zombie Abe Lincoln, and then like ghoul George Washington with his wooden teeth.
If you got bitten by the wooden teeth, would it still turn you into a zombie?
Well, no, he's a ghoul.
Ah, I see.
See, that's what's different. And then Abraham Lincoln is a zombie, and then Andrew Jackson, what is he? He's something else, like a vampire, because he sucked the country dry of blood with the stupid Trail of Tears. Not a giant fan of Andrew Jackson.
What about cool, Teddy Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt, he's a cyborg Teddy Roosevelt in there, you know.
He's defending us from the other presidents.
Possibly, yeah. I think that would well, I think him and Abe team up together. Like he's sort of wrangling zombie Abe Lincoln, and then, you know, weirdly enough, like George Washington is a bad guy in this. And they have to fight off him and Andrew Jackson and their some kind of a horde, you know,
it's going like
that they're leading.
Assassin's Creed 3 style, where it's King Washington.
That's a good game.
It's a
I've
fascinating
played that,
game.
played some of that. It's very, very silly. That's the DLC, right?
I believe it's a
it's a-
DLC, but it's like just weird seeing like King Washington and you're having to like spirit animal your way to him.
Anyway, I think it's time for us to move on to the next segment of the show. This is our trailer talk segment where we talk about our favorite or most notable trailers of the week. Tony, why don't you tell me what stood out to you this week of the trailers that we picked to talk about?
I hadn't even seen the Jackie one until you sent me a text about it. And we've got 3 trailers to talk about, and this one was the one that looked a little bit more like the type of movie that might get an Oscar, more like the highfalutin type that we don't always review. So it definitely looks interesting. Natalie Portman is playing Jackie Kennedy, and it's more her perspective after the Kennedy assassination, and a little bit of the stuff that happens while she's in the White House. And it's an interesting idea because a lot of that gets overlooked whenever you talk about the Kennedy assassination, like the actual impact on his family. You're talking about like everything that's going on in the country. You're talking about the chaos it caused, like Jack Ruby and everything else, just like how the whole thing played out, and you don't really focus in on what it was like for her, and it looks like it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, it's an angle that I don't know has been explored in any kind of film fashion. Natalie Portman, she's doing the Jackie Onassis accent, which I think she's good at. It's sometimes it's weird when you know what somebody sounds like, or at least you're used to them sounding a certain way, to hear them put on a different accent, but it didn't sound like bad. It just was like, that's not what Natalie Portman sounds like.
It's like watching V for Vendetta and her kind of poor British accent.
But I thought the trailer was cut in a really interesting way where you have sort of scenes of her at the assassination and some beautiful shots, like that sort of tracking overhead shot of the car kind of speeding away as, Kennedy slumps forward into her lap. And the stuff happening during that, the impact, you have stuff previous in the trailer just sort of setting up like this was her husband. Like, this is a woman who saw her husband shot in front of her. Everybody else saw the president get shot. She saw her husband get shot in the car right next to her. And I don't know if this shot was in the trailer or not. I was kind of watching for it, but
the shot wasn't in the trailer. Like, you saw the immediate aftermath. Like, you saw the part where she's like trying to grab like parts of his skull just out of panic and all of that. Like, you saw everything but the shot, really. I think there might have been a sound cue for the shot, but that's about it.
And there's like that moment, right? That idea of just being so like horrified and stunned that you're grabbing for your dead husband's, brains off the back of the car, which we've seen kind of in some of the footage of the assassination. Like, to get inside the mind of the person that happened to, and sort of they cut it in such a way where you're seeing the before, after, and middle, like all in the middle of this trailer. I don't know how the actual movie will play out. I don't know how well it's going to be represented in the movie. It could be sort of, boring and plotting and tedious a little bit, but the way this trailer is presented is sort of a work of art. And if the movie's good, I think could really do well for Natalie Portman.
I definitely agree with that.
Oscar
like,
chance.
It looks like a solid, well-produced movie. Did you see who directed it?
I didn't. I can look it up real quick.
Let's check that out because I'm kind of curious. Along with that, she's also being really reflective on what it's like to, like, how you kind of see the fiction of the man of Kennedy, and how like these people end up being more what they're written about than what people actually look at them as people. Like, they become more the legend than who they actually were as a person, and it just looks like it's going to be really introspective and good. Like, I'm excited to see it.
The director was a guy named Pablo Larraín, who does not appear to have done anything else that I've heard of. He's a producer on a movie called No and the Club, and director of a movie called Tony Manero. He might be like coming up from like foreign language films into American films.
Could be. I do like the cast a lot too. It's not a bunch of huge names, but it's John Hurd, Peter Sarsgaard, Billy Crudup. I always want to say Cudrup, but it's Crudup. Like people like that.
I knew I recognized that guy, the guy who's interviewing her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that guy, he's he plays something that I've seen recently.
He's in Watchmen, Almost Famous. He does a lot of voice work, that sort of thing. So,
yeah, I think I remembered him from Watchmen. Pablo Larraín is listed on IMDb for what that worth. So that is worth as Chile's greatest movie director, as well as a major movie producer through his Fabula company. So apparently well known in his circles, making the move into English speaking circles with this movie. Hopefully it'll go well.
Yeah, and for a first time director, or not first time, but an early attempt to have some of the sequences that he's put together. Either he has a really, really good cinematographer working with him, or he's actually pretty decent at it. So I'm excited for that.
Next up, and completely shifting gears with the tone of the movie, we have Kong Skull Island, which I have to say is my wife's most anticipated movie of 2016. She was like, the first time she saw a trailer, the first trailer for this, she's like, we're watching that together. Like, you're taking me to that one. Which I love. I think that's just the best. This trailer is a little bit different from the first one. The first one had a lot more sort of seriousness and kind of somber tones, whereas this second trailer really gives you a lot more humor, and B, introduces the idea of, okay, who's the villain of this movie going to be? Because it can't be King Kong, because we're going to have him and Godzilla fighting, and we want to be cheering for somebody. Like, we want to be on Kong's side. And I think they're really taking a cue from the Godzilla movie with this, in saying, okay, we have our giant kaiju guy. He's dangerous. Like, he's going to be a threat to our protagonists, but he's got something worse to fight here. And we get that in this trailer.
Yeah, we also get to see John C. Reilly doing his thing.
I hope that doesn't damage I hope that doesn't jar out of the tone, because the movie has sort of like, the trailer has a jokey tone at the beginning, and then they, like, in the middle, they get sort of in the serious tone that the first trailer had, and then they sort of shift back to the jokes sort of at the very end. I don't know exactly what they're going to be going for. It felt a little bit uneven here.
It did, in that I always see John C. Reilly as the guy from Talladega Nights. Like, I really can't take him seriously. I'm sure he's a fine actor. I don't think you're meant to take him
seriously in this.
Yeah, but like it just felt a little bit, like you said, it felt a little bit uneven, but it didn't turn me off to the movie. It's definitely one I still really want to see. I also like that they kind of took other cues from Godzilla, and they said that this is going to be heavy on Kong, because so many people were like, oh, it was nice of Godzilla to make a cameo in his own movie. So like they're going a little bit the opposite there and putting a lot more Kong in this one.
I do like that they're taking that criticism. I hope it works. I mean, sometimes you get reactionary and you don't quite do things the right way, but I'm fine with the idea of Kong showing up and kind of being right there in the first 20 minutes of the movie. Here he is, giant ape, go. I'm excited about that. They have obviously scaled him up a lot.
Yeah,
that shot
huge.
Of him walking through the river was great. I know some people get really picky about CG, but this looks fine. I mean, I love beautiful giant monsters, and Kong is a great example of a beautiful giant monster, and they're making him, with computers like you do everything these days. And
yeah, and like it looks a lot better than it used to. It's like Pacific Rim showed that you could have these giant full-on CGI things and make it absolutely beautiful. Speaking of Pacific Rim, did you see that they actually started production on the new one?
I heard that. I've heard like mixed things. Guillermo del Toro's not directing this one, which is kind of disappointing. They've got John Boyega on. I read like just a random Reddit comment from somebody completely unsubstantiated who was like, I worked on the film and there's a lot of people saying it might not be very good, because which I don't know. And also, if you're just now getting into production, who knows if it's going to be good, right? You've got reshoots, you've got editing, you've got lots of things that can still.
I'm just glad it's being made, because I thought that that got shelved permanently.
I mean, they've been talking about making it for a little while. They've had casting news coming out, but it's been it was rocky for a while. And to be honest, there was not a huge, there wasn't quite the financial incentive that you would hope for, because the first one didn't do super well.
It's so weird to me that Del Toro has such a hard time making money back on some of these films.
He's got this weird sensibility that I think doesn't quite translate to mass audiences. It kind of works for film geeks like us, but it doesn't it doesn't quite get its hooks in sort of the Avengers, crowd.
Yeah, it doesn't have the Michael Bay like print money type feel.
Right.
I mean, I'd still watch Pacific Rim if it was made by Michael Bay. I think that's a little bit too close to Transformers, but if he wanted to make a kaiju movie, I'd be in.
I want him to make anything other. I'm just sick of Michael Bay directing Transformers movies, and I'm a sort of defender of those. I don't love them, but I do. I'll watch them when they come out and enjoy them, and I just want something different. I just want a different vision. It doesn't have to be like radically different. Just give us not Michael Bay all the time. Michael Bay was fine for the first couple. I mean, I didn't like the second one. I'm not saying, but like give that guy a shot and then give somebody else a shot. Him staying on this franchise, I think, is one of the world.
It's a little bit of a waste of his talents.
Right.
Which, there's a lot of people who say he's not talented. I don't like all of his movies, but as far as cinematography goes, and as far as having a fun shoot 'em up movie, the guy knows what he's doing.
Well, and he does this sort of one for me, one for you thing. And the ones that he does for himself, I think end up being a lot more. I mean, they're still Michael Bay movies, but when you look at something like Pain and Gain, and I still need to see 13 Hours, but I read relatively positive things about that.
Or The Rock.
That he's not I guess I haven't seen that one either. So he's not incompetent, but when he's working for the studio, he just sort of says, all right, well, let's go crazy and do your, silly. It's the humor. You know what my biggest problem with the Transformers movies is the humor. They think the stuff is funny that is not funny. I mean, 12-year-olds think this stuff is funny. It's less funny than ThanksKilling, which, I mean, I thought ThanksKilling was funny, but it was very, very juvenile. Somehow Transformers is more juvenile than a movie like ThanksKilling.
Yeah. And you get that juvenile humor in the Ninja Turtles movies, which is completely fine. That makes sense for those ones. But it doesn't always work for the Transformers type stuff.
I think that even the Ninja Turtles movies are taking themselves more seriously in the humor department than Transformers. I saw the second Ninja Turtles movie.
I have not.
It wasn't deep, or it wasn't a good movie. I'm not going to say it was good, but I wasn't sitting there oh, this is so annoying with these characters making jokes. It was just sort of here's big dumb fun with, Bebop and Rocksteady and they're driving a tank, and it didn't make a ton of sense, but my intelligence wasn't completely insulted by the jokes. Speaking of juvenile entertainment though, our third trailer that we're going to talk about is actually a teaser.
Yeah, 50-second teaser.
For Cars 3. The entirety of this teaser is sort of showing cars racing, going past Lightning McQueen, being passed by some kind of new fancy stealth electric race car, and then a super slow-mo shot of Lightning McQueen crashing, flipping over, pieces flying off of him.
Ripping off.
It's all Bleach bypass. It's got that sort of washed out feel from Seven. I mean, that may not be literally Bleach bypass, but it's very much.
I think that there's got to be some filters on it because it's more intense shadows, muted colors.
It's not literally Bleach bypass because there's no literal film being shot here.
I didn't know that was actually I had heard the term Bleach bypass, and only now is it dawning on me that they would actually bleach it.
Yes, that's part of the development process, is that you would there would be silver on the film, and then they would run it through this bleach bath to get the silver off, and sometimes filmmakers would leave the silver on and say, and get a particular look, and this has shades of that look. It may not be completely that, but so I didn't dislike the trailer, Tony. I watched it and I was like, that I am sort of moved. First of all, it looks amazing. And it has this sort of weird, grim and gritty feel to it, but also I'm questioning who is this for? Do we need the grim and gritty Lightning McQueen Cars 3 reboot?
I feel like it's gonna start out that way, and it's just gonna turn into another Pixar movie. I like the way that they filmed this, but that's more just by my own preferences, because I'm not as connected to Cars as you are. I've seen it twice, and I liked it. But also, it feels like there could be room for for a different story. If you're going to go to the third one, you got to add some sort of flavor to it.
I'm fine with, like, I read this is another thing I think was just from some unsubstantiated Reddit user, but somebody talking about sort of giving the rundown of what they had seen the plot was supposed to be, where he suffers an injury, he kind of gets out of racing, he goes into training, he finds like another race car back in Radiator Springs that he sort of mentors, like Doc mentored him. All that sounds fine, but as a sort of like, hey, get excited for this movie, you gotta, like, I understand the reaction to Cars 2. They're sort of saying, okay, a little bit too much Mater in Cars 2, a little bit too much slapstick. Let's get back to a little bit more seriousness. This feels like an overcorrection in a car driving terminology. It feels like they're gonna spin out with this because I don't see my kid being excited to go to see this in the way that it's presented. As a teaser trailer. Who are you targeting the trailer at? Is it me? Are they targeted at me? Because I'm excited, but I don't know. It's a weird. It exists in sort of an odd shadowland of like the other side of the monster trucks sort of universe, right? Where like this is for kids and for family, but kind of more for kids, and they're like if you're not on board with the really stupid joke that the monsters are in the truck, then maybe you're probably not going to like the movie. I saw somebody disparage that. It's like, yeah, we get it. The monsters are in the truck. And I was like, yeah, we do get it. And it's awesome. Shut your mouth. But by the way, we don't have that on here, but the first trailer was better for monster trucks. I'm just going to say that. It's not on my list, but the first trailer was better. You can go watch my reaction video. Had more like story points and sort of told you what the movie was about more. This is just sort of like, oh, remember, we still have this movie coming out. That irritated me a little bit, but I enjoyed knowing the movie was still coming out. But yeah, Cars 3, it's in this weird, uncanny valley is not the right word, because that's about like, animation and stuff, but that teaser felt sort of unnecessary.
Well, you tweeted it out and you're like, someone needs to tell them it's not Batman.
It's not Batman. It's not grim and gritty. It's Cars. Mater's probably still going to be in there, guys. They're still going to be selling toys. Like, I still want, if they're going to make a Cars movie, make it colorful. I don't want that weird Bleach bypass look. I don't want it to be gritty. I
don't mind the tonal shift if that's like the moment he gets injured, though. Like, if it gets serious and he's, like, really trying to win this race and just everything goes wrong, if that's the only part of the movie that goes, like, the Bleach style, then I think that could be effective.
You think it's like a flashback?
I think it could be a flashback. Like, that might be him thinking about the race that happened. Like, so I feel like the tonal shift could work there, so long as that's not the entire movie.
Okay, well, but again, this is the teaser presenting the entire movie as, like, that's how they're presenting it. Maybe as just a way to sort of stick their flag in the ground saying, no, we're not doing Cars 2 again. We get it. That didn't work. I mean, don't get rid of Mater. Mater's fine as like seasoning. You just can't make he's salt. You don't make the whole dish salt, but you put some salt in there.
He's the side dish.
Just like Johnny Depp. You don't make the whole movie Jack Sparrow, guys. Yeah. That's what the problem with Pirates 4 was. But
for those of you wondering a few minutes ago why I was looking so weird on video, I heard a shriek and then I heard weird things thumping around. And I think it's just like the neighbor.
Go investigate?
I think the neighbor, like, I haven't heard anything for a minute or two, so I think they're probably okay. It sounded like they were like moving a couch and maybe dropped it on somebody's foot, but I was a little bit freaked out there for a second. So
Night of the Living Couch Movers.
Sorry for the weird looks that, like, I was not disagreeing with Al or like trying to take my headphones off and stare into space, like, so. That was a little weird.
Did we have anything else we wanted to cover before we wrap this thing up, Tony? We got a couple more minutes here.
I like had a list of things, but I feel like they would take a little bit too long, so they might end up on the bonus podcast. Which reminds me, if you guys want to listen to the bonus podcast, if you go to humanechoes.com and click on Become a Member, there's a ton of options there. $2, $5, $10, or $20 a month, depending on how much you love us. We really understand how much you love us based on those levels. Like, our love for you will be reciprocated based on that level. But if you go there, you become a member, you can listen to the bonus podcast where we get to talk about all sorts of different topics. Joe joins us. It's one of the best products that we get to make every couple weeks, and it's a ton of fun. You can also get postcards, stickers, all sorts of other things depending on the tier you get. You get to hear us talk about things like Alpha Gal and all these other things, the Great Molasses Incident of Boston in like the early 1900s, things like that. It's a lot of fun.
What's Alpha Gal? I guess I'll have to tune in to find out. I don't remember Alpha Gal in there. Is that coming up?
Yeah, that was one of the things I had notes about. It's a protein that makes you allergic to meat.
Oh, nice.
So
okay,
we got stuff to talk about. All sorts of things. Like we released sort of a pseudo bonus podcast. We did a podcast during Extra Life that we called a bonus podcast. It's similar to that, but it's not quite. So if you guys want to, hell, I'll even do this. If you want to try out being a member, checking out some of the bonus podcasts, I'll give you a week free if you tweet me at @tsouthcott. We'll figure it out. And yeah. So that's one great way to support us. Al, what's another way?
Another way is to go on our website, click the Amazon affiliate links. Any of them that takes you to Amazon has our Amazon code. And when you buy stuff there, I know you're going to be buying stuff for Christmas on Amazon. If you just click through there, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it gets us a little cut because Amazon's like, hey, they said Human Echoes sent you. We're going to give them a little kickback.
Yeah, and the more like nice. Small items you buy actually makes our cut bigger. Like they do it specifically by how many items you sell. So it starts out at about 5% and moves up to about 8 to 10. And if you buy,
what we're looking for is for you to buy a lot of individual packaged paper clips.
Yes, individually packaged. No, like seriously, there are a lot of people that are buying office supplies, and that helps our percentage so much. Like, it's just awesome that you guys actually use that. I like getting to see that people are buying like mountain bikes, buying their books for the next semester of school, all sorts of awesome stuff. We don't see names, so if you want to buy something really weird, like, don't worry about it, just do it. But click on those links, go through. It's a great way to support us. And another thing we could always use is just tell your friends about us, retweets, share us on Facebook, that sort of stuff. But enough of that.
Tweet out the podcast. That is huge for us.
Yes.
We are very thankful for you doing that. Speaking of being thankful, hopefully this podcast is going to drop a day early on Thanksgiving.
Yep. So you guys traveling different places will be able to listen to us on Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a great one. Stay safe. Eat a lot of turkey.
Do you want to say what you're thankful for, Tony, since this is the Thanksgiving podcast?
I'm thankful that I get to do this for a job. I'm thankful that this year I've been able to commit to actually making some positive life changes and getting stronger, faster, better, losing almost 40 pounds. Just like a lot of good things have happened for me this year. It's been a long haul, but it's amazing to actually still be doing this 11 months into the year that usually peters out after 1 or 2 months. So I feel like there's a lot of good things happening in my life, and I'm very thankful that I get to share it with all of you.
I'm thankful for the podcast and the stuff we get to do here creatively as well. And I'm also very thankful for my family, for my 2 boys and my wife. It's such a wonderful life that I get to live with them, and they're all just great. And yeah, it's been a good year, Tony.
Yeah, definitely has been.
By the way, we mentioned this at the beginning. We will be watching Neon Demon next week. If you listen to the end of the previous podcast, I had edited in that we were going to be watching Neon Demon. Joe vetoed that, but we are still getting around to that. So that's next week's movie. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.